All right, UFC Fight Night London, Brady Edwards, full card prediction. Starting from the first fight of the early prelims, going to the main event. First fight of the card, we've got Guram Kutateladze versus Kaue Fernandes. I'm picking Guram. He's just a lot more proven. He's looked good against some pretty good competition. Yeah, a split decision loss to Demiris Magulov, split decision win to Mateusz Gamrot. He looked really good against Jordan Vucenic in his last fight. Looked good against Elvis Brenner before he got knocked out. And just Kaue Fernandes, not as proven. 9-2, pretty green record. His 2 losses. He had one earlier in his career, and then he had a split decision loss to Mark Chikaze, who's just not a very high level fighter. You know, not a loss you want to see. I mean, he's a decent underdog. I think, you know, we don't really, like I said, Guram's more proven, but he's not like super proven, you know. He doesn't have any like dominant wins against good fighters, or even dominant wins against decent fighters, but he's looked good against good fighters. One thing I will say is that Gamrot is the most proven of the bunch, and the thing that's most proven about Gamrot is he's willing to have a close fight with anyone. He'd go to a split decision 29-28 with a fucking broom and with John Jones. So I mean, Kaue Fernandes could win, but we haven't seen anything that would tell me he's gonna win. So other than Guram is kind of chinny, but then again, got chinned by Elvis Brenner, who has got some pop. Next fight up the card, this one, another matchup between 2 guys who aren't super proven. 2 Cage Warriors fighters from England, two hometown. I guess one of them's from Ireland, one from England. Nathaniel Fletcher versus Caolan Loughran. I can't pronounce it. Caolan Loughran. He's been pretty unimpressive in his UFC career. I think he's 1-2. His last fight against Jake Hadley was pretty unimpressive. Not just because he lost and Jake Hadley's since been cut, but because basically what he tried to do against Jake Hadley is the exact same thing Cameron Smotherman did to Jake Hadley, and Cameron Smotherman did it easily as a big underdog on short notice. He had a similar game plan against Lapulus. He kind of just like hard-headed. He's similar to like Vettori or I don't want to say Gamrot, but kind of how Gamrot grapples, he strikes, where it's like not the most technical. He just has physical attributes that he takes advantage of. He's got a good chin. He tucks his chin, decent defense, but he just walks forward, takes a bunch of punches on the nose, on the forehead, and tries to land a couple good ones. I mean, he didn't do that in his last fight against Hadley or against Lapulus. His grappling has been pretty untested too. We haven't seen him a ton of his grappling. And in Fletcher's only UFC fight against Zigomatas Ramaska off of the Contender Series, Fletcher submitted him in the first round. And from what I've seen, Fletcher's got pretty good grappling, a couple of submissions in Cage Warriors. I'm going to pick Fletcher. It just maybe less proven, but more early. He hasn't been proven bad in the way that Loughran has. So. Also, they fought each other as amateurs in 2018, and Fletcher won. So I'm sure both of them have improved pretty drastically, and I don't think the fight is going to go how it went before, but I think the result will be the same in that Fletcher will win. Next fight up the card, just another. I mean, another stinker. This one is a stinker, but the other 2 haven't really been stinkers. But Shauna Bannon versus Puja Tomar. Puja Tomar is 9-4. Her competition hasn't been that good. She's had a couple like decent losses in one. Lost to Stamp Fairtex, who has a name that people recognize, I guess. She's like thumbnail fodder for 1FC. But Shauna Bannon also fought Cans, but she's 6-1 instead of 9-4. So I'm just going to pick her. Maybe her grappling sucks, and Puja Tomar's going to like submit her. But Puja Tomar got like ground and pound DKO'd by Stamp Fairtex. So I'm going to pick Shauna Bannon to just fucking win a decision or something like that. It's just like, we don't know much about either, except that they've both mainly fought Cans, and Shauna Bannon has a better record. So if it's a can fighting competition, Shauna Bannon's better. Next fight up the card, Christian Leroy Duncan versus Andrey Pulyaev. CLD has historically had a problem with like getting on the inside. He's been always like super hesitant on the outside, like kind of tit for tat, leg kicks and body kicks against the guard and jabs, and like he hasn't committed a ton, especially in his fights with RoboCop and Protrusion. And I don't like that, and I think the reason why he did that was his game plan. Like I think his game plan was to like tit for tat on the outside, just because he had a longer reach and was like bigger than RoboCop and Protrusion. But this time, Pulyaev is much bigger than CLD. So because of that, even though it sounds counterintuitive, like you want to be bigger than your opponent, I think that his game plan, I mean, he'd have to be a total moron to not have this be his game plan. I think his game plan is going to be get on the inside, throw lead hooks, throw 1-2s, stuff like that, land with power punches on the inside. And if you do that to Pulyaev, I think you're going to win because Pulyaev isn't very good. And as long as he doesn't just fight on the outside like he's submitted himself to losing before, I think he'll win. Like whenever he tries to get on the inside and like bangs out a guy, pause, he has success. So Pulyaev also looks pretty chinny. Like he looks hittable. Like he flinches when he gets thrown at. Like he looks scared. He's also very unproven, 9-2. You pull up his record. It is 9-2. I just want to see who we fought on the Contender Series because I remember it was. Let's see. VIF. Wish I had the pronunciation on Tapology. That'd be nice. 1-0 in the Contender Series. Yeah, he fought Liam Anderson, 6-2. That wasn't that impressive. Just like an American prospect, 3-0 in LFA. Not a very impressive looking guy. Yeah. And he didn't finish him. Got a decision. Pulyaev's got a couple in a row, but he got knocked out in 2023. That was 6 fights ago, but that wasn't that long ago. So yeah, that was also his last loss, and he got chinned. So I'm gonna take CLD to just find the chin of Pulyaev, and get a win against a guy who's got EV in his last name, and get a little overrated. All right, this one, a little confused by the odds. This is maybe more exciting fight: Mick Parkin versus Marcin Tybura. I'm picking Marcin Tybura to do what he does, which is just beat bums. Marcin Tybura hasn't lost to a bum in like 6 years or 5 years. He lost to Augusto Sakai in like 2019, and he's a bum. But since then, Tybura has beaten all the bums that he's fought. Most heavyweights you see don't get their grappling fraud checked for a while because most heavyweights are really dumb and they don't shoot takedowns. You think of Shauna Deniz. He fought Austin Lane, who shot takedowns in the first round of their fight. Didn't get shoot takedowns in the second round, got knocked out. He then fought, Shauna Deniz fought, I think it's Carl Williams. His name's something like that. The Dominican guy, I'm pretty sure he's Dominican. Or he's from some Bahamas or something like that. Didn't shoot a takedown on Deniz, lost the decision. And I'm trying to think, like Rebellos to Spain got his knockout in the first round because Jake Collier didn't shoot a takedown, just got knocked out. And then he fights a guy like Waldo Cortez Acosta, who has like more than 70 IQ, and he shoots a takedown and he wins. The thing about Marcin Tybura is he always shoots takedowns when he knows he has to. He shot a just shoots takedowns in general. Against Deniz, shot takedowns. Spivak, shot takedowns, got submitted, but he shot a takedown, and that was 2 fights ago. He's got the gumption to go out there and shoot takedowns. Tuivasa, shot a takedown, got the win. Romanov, shot a takedown, won the decision. Walt Harris, shot the takedown, won the fight. Greg Hardy, shot the takedown, won the fight. Like, get guys that are, you got to be worried about getting knocked out by. Don't trade on them. It's a big risk. Shoot a takedown, win the fight. And I'm not saying Mick Parkin is like the kind of guy you got to worry about getting chinned by. Like, he's not exactly a power puncher. He's no Ngannou. He's no Pavlovich. But Mick Parkin is a heavyweight, so there's always a risk of getting knocked out by him. And 2, he's a fat fuck. And the thing about fat fucks is they're really bad at getting off their back. He's just not in good shape. He's like a pretty big heavyweight, but he's not like a massive heavyweight. And he's got some fat on him. So yeah, kind of like a turtle. Put him on his back. He's not gonna be able to get up. Think of how Tuivasa lost against Volkov and Tybura. He just got put on his back and didn't know what to do. And He got submitted against Volkov, and I think he got submitted against Tybura, or was a ground and pound TKO. It's just like these guys that don't know what to do when they get on their backs. And Mick Parkin looks like that kind of guy. 10-0, but I mean, you look at his record. Beat Lucas Bershke, fat PED cheap bum. Knocked him out, good for you. Mo Usman went to a close decision with him. Mo Usman sucks. Won the Ultimate Fighter in probably the worst season of the Ultimate Fighter ever. He got one finish and was on the final. Kyle Machado, fat light heavyweight bum, went to light heavyweight, lost the most boring fight ever to Brandon Sinibero, who sucks. I mean, he's fine, but he sucks. He just beat someone last week as an underdog, I think. Or I picked against him, I don't remember. Mick Parkin beat Jamal Pogues, welcome to the club. And he beat Eduardo Neves, welcome to the club. Like, all fat bums he beat. So he's beaten no one good, and he's a favorite against Tybura, who does the same thing. Like, if Tybura fought Eduardo Neves, Jamal Pogues, Kyle Machado, Mo Usman, and Lucas Bershke, he'd beat all of them. He'd finish all of them. So I don't get why Mick Parkin is... maybe he's not the favorite anymore. Let me check the odds. But the odds were close. Yeah, Mick Parkin's the favorite. It's so dumb. This is the easiest underdog ever. He's just not good. And I was listening to an Aspinall interview, and Aspinall was like sneak dissing Mick Parkin, saying that Mick Parkin isn't good. So, yeah, I'm going to pick out Marcin Tybura to just take him down and finish him in like the first round. Same thing I did to Dennis. It's like these guys don't know what to do on the other back. Next fight up the card, Loner the Boner Kavanaugh versus Felipe dos Santos. This will probably be a really good fight. I mean, it could be really boring. Actually, I've kind of picked it to be really boring, because I don't know why I said it was a really good fight. But you look at Felipe dos Santos, the guys he's lost to in the UFC, pretty good. Andrey Lima just had an amazing performance last week. Looked really good in all of his fights. Really touted prospect. Went to a decision with him. And then Manel Cap went to a close decision with him. He had a close fight with Victor Altamirano too, who isn't good, which is surprising because close decision with Manel Cap that he lost. Manel Cap's really good. Split decision with Victor Altamirano. Altamirano's really good, or really bad. So, and this is why. I don't know why I said it was weird. I know why. Manel Cap gets in close fights. I'm sorry, not Manel Cap. Felipe dos Santos gets in close fights with fighters who engage in like extended boxing exchanges with him. And Manel Cap does good when he gets in those extended exchanges, or else he just kind of hesitates on his back foot. So Manel Cap kind of had to play into dos Santos' game. But I think if Loner Kavanaugh sees that by watching any dos Santos fight, he'll realize that he can just fight on the outside. He's got really good boxing footwork, so he can fight on the outside, tip tap, pit pat, step out, pit pat, step out. He can get in and out really quick. Not getting those extended exchanges and not worried about getting caught, kind of how Manel Cap was. Anytime you watch a Manel Cap fight, he's got really good head movement, footwork, but he likes to stick around for longer than he should. And every time, like, ooh, he's going to get hit here. He's going to get clipped. He never does, or rarely does. But, yeah, Loner Kavanaugh, not like that. He doesn't stay inside for super long. So I think he'll use this to win most of the exchanges and probably win a decision. Or if he really picks it up, I could see him getting like a late stoppage. I don't think he's going to chin Felipe dos Santos in the first round. It is flyweight. But I think he's really good. So, yeah. He's pretty untested, and we haven't really seen him hurt. We haven't really seen him off his back, And I think that dos Santos could beat him if, he fights dumb. Maybe a pretty good underdog. But I think he's a good matchup for dos Santos on the feet. So if he fights a good game plan and he fights how he fought against whoever the nobody, I think he fought Jose Ochoa in his last fight. So if he fights like he fought his last fight, and he fights like he last fought on the Contender Series and on Cage Warriors, I think he'll fight pretty good. So, yeah. Next fight up the card, Jai Herbert versus Chris Padilla. It's hard to know how good Padilla is. He's 15-6. I think this is his second run in the UFC. His last two fights were in the UFC. He's 2-0 in them. Yeah, okay, no, this is his first run in the UFC. 2-0 in the UFC. 0-1 in Bellator. But like you go look back at his record, he's got some really bad losses. Like 2022, lost to Darren Smith Jr. Literally who? 20-12 guy. Lost to Devin Brock, 6-4. Nate Andrews 12-1, Gabe Green 6-2. Like, I don't know who these guys are. And Chris Padilla leads them. But he's on a 5-fight win streak, 2-0 in the UFC, both by finishes. It makes me unsure about how good he is. Now, I'm going to pick Herbert just because he's more proven. I know that he's pretty solid. He's good at getting close decisions and, making fights go his way. He almost knocked out Ilya Tybura. A couple of his, I don't know. I think he's pretty solid. So yeah, and that's why I'm going to pick him. I rewatched Chris Padilla's fight with Rongju, Rongju, and Rongju was kind of beating Padilla before the what do you call it? Before Padilla landed like a spinning elbow and swelled up his eye. Because of that, I'm just going to pick Herbert to do the same thing. Like, I think that Herbert has the ability to kind of beat Padilla as Rongju was doing, especially when you combine the fact that Herbert, if it's a close decision, it's in England, so he has like the home field advantage, could get a robbery. His losses to Tybura and Freziam, and he also had a draw with Ludovic Klein. Those have all aged pretty well, so I think he's actually kind of decently high level. Only loses to better fighters. Lost to Francisco Trinaldo in his debut. That was the stop the fight. I think that Herbert's actually pretty good, and at least I know that about him, and I don't know about Chris Padilla. So I'll pick Herbert. Next fight up the card, Morgan Charriere versus Nathaniel Wood. This will be actually a really good fight. Both of these guys pretty high level. A lot of them do both of them do kind of interesting stuff. I'm going to pick Charriere, and here's why. All of Wood's fights at 145, except his last fight, the Pineda fight, they've been close decisions that he kind of edged out, or he got robbed in the Muhammad Naimov fight, and he could just get robbed in scorecards, but he also got fouled like 6 times with no point taken. When you look at like the Jordan and the Philly fight, all of those fights are mainly exchanges on the outside, or like super quick boxing exchanges, which is where Wood has the most success on the feet. During the outside exchanges, due to like Wood being kind of a small featherweight, his opponents usually had the advantage, but they didn't really do much to capitalize with that. I've seen Charriere, as opposed to Jordan and Philly, use like a lot more tools like body kicks and teeps and stuff like that in that like outside range where they had an advantage. And I think he's a lot better in that range than opponents Wood has fought before, and Wood still had trouble in that range. And if you look at like in the range where Wood was getting better than, like on the inside, the boxing exchanges, like Philly, he fought Dan Ige, got knocked out on the inside when Ige like slipped the punch, got on the inside, and then Joe Anderson Berto kind of the same thing. Like Philly just lost that outside range, let Joe Anderson Berto on the inside and got knocked out. You look at Charles Jourdain, his fight with Gene Silva, that's kind of what happened, like a break-in of a clinch, let the guy on the inside, just got chinned right away. Pretty sure he got knocked down before that in a similar way. I feel like Charriere is a lot better in that range defensively and a lot better offensively. Maybe not better, but like a lot more dynamic, a lot more variability on the outside with kicks and teeps and stuff like that. So we haven't really seen Charriere get bullied in that inside range. And I think that's probably because like he hasn't fought anyone that good. But he did fight, what's his name? Chepe Mariscal. He's been kind of on a tear. And he did a lot of damage to Damon Jackson, and where he fought in his last fight in that range where he just gets on the inside and kind of beats him up. So, couldn't do it to Charriere. I don't know if Wood's going to be able to do it, especially because he's much smaller than Mariscal was. So, yeah. I also think Charriere has a lot better finishing potential than Philly and Pineda and Jourdain, especially on the feet. I think he has even better finishing potential than Wood. So if this fight is close and someone's got to get a finish, I'd give it to Charriere. So I think that just like the matchup on the feet goes Charriere's way. And, Wood could out-grapple and maybe hold him up against the fence in the clinch. But Gabriel Miranda tried to do that to Charriere, and Charriere knocked him out. So, yeah. Next fight of the card, another banger. I think this is the main card now. Jordan Vucenic versus Chris Duncan. I I think Jordan Vucenic is more proven in the UFC. I'm sorry, he's more proven, even though he's had only one fight in the UFC and Chris Duncan has had 4. And I think that because we knew from Cage Warriors that Jordan Vucenic was really good. He had a loss to Paul Hughes, and I think he got it back. I think he had a win over Paul Hughes. Let me fact check this. Lost to Paul Hughes, and then lost really early in his career. So yeah, only lost like recently in his career was to Paul Hughes by a decision, close decision. And everything else we saw from him in Cage Warriors was early finishes. Okay, that's actually not true. It's split decision to Morgan Charriere and split decision to Paul Hughes that he won, and then he lost to Paul Hughes by unanimous decision. But since then, everything we've seen from early finishes at different weight classes, he's just looked really good. And in the UFC, in his fight with Guram, he proved that he's higher level than Chris Duncan has been able to prove in his 4 fights in the UFC. So, in Cage Warriors, he looked like this is good, and he looks composed and technically sound, and like he goes for finishes. But you don't always know how it's going to translate in the UFC. And just in that one fight, he proved like he's really good at scrambling with one of the better scramblers in the division. His skills are really high level, and he didn't look like and he was significantly advantaged anywhere by Guram, who is one of the more well-rounded fighters in the division, and the fight was on short notice. So, yeah, Vucenic proved a lot in that fight. I don't really think that Chris Duncan has a skill advantage like anywhere on Vucenic, at least like a reliable one that he can use to game plan and beat Vucenic. And I really don't think Chris Duncan has the finishing potential of Jordan Vucenic. So if someone's going to get a finish, it's probably Vucenic with submission. And if someone's going to, masterclass outskill the other guy, I think it's going to be Vucenic on the ground and on the feet. So I'm pretty high on him. If he loses, I'll be very disappointed. I think he's going to be a prospect at, pretty sure this is 55. I know Vucenic fought at, it is 55. I know Vucenic fought at 55 and 45, Cage Warriors, but interesting he's sticking at 55. Usually they start at their lower weight class and then go up to their, maybe that's not true. I guess Pimblett started at 55, so I don't know. Yeah, picking Vucenic, just a pretty good-looking fighter. Well, good. Technically, he looks like a good fighter. He does. Okay. Pause, I guess. Next fight of the card. Alexia Thainara versus Molly McCann. I don't trust women's MMA prospects anymore, especially as debutantes. I need to see them in the UFC first. They all just lose. That every time there's an undefeated women's prospect, they lose. I know Thainara isn't undefeated. She's 11-1. I'm picking Molly McCann to win. We don't know if Thainara is any good. I looked at her record, 11-1, good looking, and then you look at some of the fights. She's definitely fought in rigged fights before. Okay, let me see what the name of this opponent was. You guys can cross-check this with me. She fought 2 people that were 0-1. Thainara Almeida, they have the same name, a little weird, and Gracie Kelly Campos. 2 different promotions, to be fair. One of them in Pentagon Combat 23, which I think I talked about being rigged before. 8 seconds into the fight, she got an armbar. First of all, how does that even work? Thainara Almeida, April 15, 2023, at Maximum Fight 3. 8 seconds into the fight, she got another armbar. Like, how does that even make sense? And then submission to strikes in round 2 against a 3-1 opponent. Rear naked choke against an 0-0 opponent. In 2019, she lost to Bruna Brazil, who was 2-2 at the time. I guess Bruna Brazil did beat Molly McCann, kind of whooped her. And I'm a little worried about Molly McCann because she doesn't try to get out of submissions. Like, if she just gets an armbar, she taps. You watch the Julia Stolarenko fight, she just gets an armbar and then immediately taps, like doesn't try to bridge or get out or anything. Like, it wasn't even locked in or being like pranked, and she tapped. So she could do that, and that'd be a little disappointing. But I think if it stays on the feet, I think Thainara will win. And I'll be honest, I haven't watched much of her fighting, but based on the fact that I think she had a decision in the Contender Series, wasn't able to finish. Rose Conceição, I don't think she's gonna be able to finish, or at least get down Molly McCann. Like, when I see someone has a ton of submissions on the record, it always makes me think like, man, or if they have a ton of submissions and they're fighting bums, like, they probably don't have good takedowns. They're probably just ending up on the ground because the other person's uncoordinated and they fall over, and then getting a submission. So yeah. Also, she has a ton of canceled fights against people who go on to be in the UFC. Like February 19, 2022, she was supposed to fight Denise Gomes, who's now in the UFC. And March 20th, 2022, so a month and 1 day later, she was supposed to fight Julia Plastri, who's in the UFC now. Like I said before, fought Bruna Brazil in 2019. Both of them as green prospects. But yeah, Thainara just completely unproven. But, you know, I'll pick them all I can because at least I know she's like capable of finishing someone on the feet, capable of finishing someone who has beaten someone else in the UFC. So, yeah. Next fight of the card, featured fight. That's what I'm really excited for. Not because the fight's going to be a banger, but because Gunnar Nelson, one of my favorite fighters, not the most exciting fighter, but he always shows you some cool technique that like no one else uses. It's really interesting on the feet. He's kind of like Pantoja, where he like does a lot of interesting, like dumb looking stuff on the feet, and then he gets on the ground, you're like, oh my god, this guy's a savant at grappling. And fortunately for me, because I want him to win, he's a very good stylistic matchup for like the weaknesses Kevin Holland shows, especially in his last few fights. You look at his fights on the feet against Wonderboy and MVP, who have a very, very similar style to Gunnar Nelson. I won't say Gunnar Nelson's like as good at them as, you know, at karate, at Kenpo, whatever fucking fake sport they fight. But he does that tap, 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 like the bouncing, and then the 1-2s, and then the 1-2s into the clinch, kind of like how MVP does. 1-2 into shoving the guy. Does a lot of that, and Kevin Holland had no answers for that. He also had no answers for that. There's no ability to get on the inside and like break down a Wonderboy who was doing the same thing. So if Nelson's gonna be able to bounce on the outside and land those 1-2s, he's gonna have similar success to Wonderboy and MVP. History would tell us. And on the feet against Mikhail Oleksiejczuk in MVP's fight at middleweight, he got dropped by like a long right hand, or it was a cross. I don't remember if it was a left hand or right hand. While backing up with his hands down because he thought he was out of range, which is exactly how Gunnar Nelson knocks down everyone. I think he did to Omar Akhmedov, I think he did to Zach Cummings, maybe he just took him out, but he does it a lot. You look at his finishes against Alan Jouban, I know he did it. Guys think they're out of range because he's bouncy on the outside, and then he blitzes in and hits them with their hands down while they're backing up. So yeah, that's how Kevin Holland got hurt against Mikhail Oleksiejczuk. So that's the matchup on the feet. And on the ground, which is where Gunnar Nelson is at his strongest, Kevin Holland does exactly what Gunnar Nelson's losing opponents always do. He just kind of gives up when he gets on his back. You look at Alex Oliveira, like when Gunnar Nelson got on top of him, Gunnar Nelson like brutalized him with elbows, landed great ground and pound. He split like Oliveira's forehead open with a cut that was one of the worst cuts I've ever seen in the UFC. It was a cut like the size of a fucking $50 or a silver dollar on his forehead, bled everywhere. He tapped out. He was in a choke, but he tapped out like to his blood being squeezed out of his forehead at like a pint a second rate. And Brian Barberena in Gunnar Nelson's last fight, Gunnar Nelson got on top, landed a couple elbows, and then Brian Barberena tried to get wrist control, and he just gave up his arm and armbar. And you look at Kevin Holland's last two fights, he fought Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze was dancing all over him on top, rolling around in mount, in north-south, like, you know, side control, just kind of dance around in that, like, those dominant top positions. And Kevin Holland just, you know, I'm just going to be honest, he faked a rib injury. He just quit when he got on bottom, and then immediately gave up a submission to Reynard Ritter when Reynard Ritter got on top of him. Now, I don't know if Gunnar Nelson is exactly the level of grappler that Reynard Ritter is as far as submissions, and maybe Roman Dolidze too. But Gunnar Nelson has really, really good work on top with submissions and elbows and ground and pound. And I just think that if he gets on top of Holland, he does similar work to what I saw Roman Dolidze and Reynard Ritter do to him. With, I think, even deadlier ground and pound. Also, since Gunnar Nelson has last fought, they legalized 12-6 elbows, which I think he'll utilize greatly. So he always ends up in mount or in like postured side control or postured half guard, and that's where you want to use 12-6 elbows. So I could see him, get in those positions and light him up. And beyond Reynard Ritter and Roman Dolidze, Gunnar Nelson actually has pretty good takedowns. He uses his like bouncing 1-2s and blitzes to get into the clinch. And because of that, when he gets in the clinch, he has really good trips. He has used a good outside trip. Or he tried to use an outside trip against Brian Barberena, and then when he stumbled, he grabbed a really good high crotch and then dumped him. And then previously in his career, he'd used really good trips from the clinch, which he got to from the blitzes. So yeah, if he gets him down, which I think he'll be more able to than DeLindsey and Rainer Ritter, at least pound for pound wise, I think he has better takedown attacks in spite of his size. I think he'll be able to do good work on top, get a finish. I also can see Kevin Holland just, quote unquote, air quotes, re-injuring his rib. I think he faked it because he broke his rib, tapped out to a broken rib, and then came back to fight 2 months later. It's like, you didn't break your rib, dude. You're not going to a training camp 6 weeks after you break your rib. Unless you're Kevin Holland, who, loves to, Kevin Holland has a pretty bad mentality in fighting. He loves to, take the easy way out. Like against Wonderboy, if he just grappled, he could have made that fight close. But he kind of, as Jean-Paul Sartre would say, he denied his freedom. He didn't allow that option to exist. He just took the easier route where he's like, I'm just going to have a striking match with Wonderboy. And what do you know? I lost to a really good striker. At least I know that if I could have grappled and maybe could have won. He could have had that thought in his head instead of actually trying and actually losing. So he has that quitter mentality. And if he ends up on bottom against Nelson, I can see him just finding an injury or quitting or whatever. I also could see him chinning Gunnar Nelson because, Gunnar Nelson keeps his hands low and gets chinned occasionally. And Kevin Holland is kind of due to win. Everyone's kind of hating on him right now with the whole 45-70 thing and all that Rampage stuff. But I don't know. I don't think he's going to win. But he could. He definitely could. Gunnar Nelson is old and beatable. So there's that. All right, co-main event. Carlos Ulberg versus Jan Blachowicz. Every single thinking part of my brain is telling me to pick Jan Blachowicz. But I'm not going to. And I don't want to know why I'm not going to. I think it's one, Carlos Ulberg is a massive favorite in the odds. And Ulberg is just kind of I've picked against Ulberg in every fight because I feel like he just has glaring holes and he's super overrated. But he beat Oezdemir, and he beat Manifield, and he beat Dawon Young, and he beat everyone he saw before that, but Kennedy Nzechukwu. And it's just I gotta accept that he just kind of wins fights that maybe looks like it shouldn't. Everything that I know about him now tells me that if he fought Oezdemir tomorrow, I'd pick Oezdemir. But whatever, I'll just pick him to beat Blachowicz. Here's why. Here's the reverse engineering I did to justify my picking of Carlos Ulberg. Blachowicz has had most of his striking success taking advantage of holes in strikers at 205. So Ankalaev doesn't really defend low kicks. Blachowicz made that fight a draw by just using the low kicks really well. He took advantage of the lack of boxing defense and the lack of size from Israel Adesanya. He also, this is just on the feet. We also use the grappling, obviously, but I'll get to that in a second. Dominic Reyes didn't do well against body kicks and didn't do well against blitzes. Dominic Reyes also had a big nose. He kind of took advantage of that by punching him on the big nose and then kind of breaking him down and finishing him. And then he also took advantage of the chin and IQ of Corey Anderson, who just threw a naked leg kick with his hands down and got chinned. And took advantage of the chin and striking defense of Luke Rockhold, who was used to, I think he was just ready to, get out of the way of everything Blachowicz was going to throw, because Blachowicz is a plotty, 205er, and Luke Rockhold is a flashy, technical 185er. And then he kind of got rattled with that head kick. I don't know. Luke Rockhold, he was old. Whatever. Just ignore that. Whatever. Okay. What was I say? The fighters with the holes that are most similar to Carlos Ulberg are, I would say, Alex Pereira and Israel Adesanya, at least of the fighters that Blachowicz has fought. And I think that Blachowicz can take advantage of those holes in the game. But I think he was able to do that more successfully against Adesanya and Pereira because he was a lot bigger than Adesanya and he had a grappling advantage over both of them. So stuff like the boxing defense and the, proclivity to get hit by blitzes and, not have your hands in the right spot every time. those were accentuated by the fact that Pereira and Adesanya are kickboxers who did grapple. So you also got to look at Blachowicz. He is 42 years old. He's coming off of injuries and surgeries. He pulled out of a fight against, was it Jamal Hill? It was someone. Let me check. It was Alexander Rakic. Pulled out of a fight a year ago. Shoulder injury. He got a shoulder surgery. He got 2 knee surgeries after that too. And he's taken a lot of damage in his recent fights. If you look at his 4 most recent fights, Glover Teixeira fight, he lost. Alexander Rakic fight, he won because Rakic got injured. Ankalaev fight, should have probably lost, and it was a draw. Pereira fight, arguably could have won, but lost. So he's just not in the best of runs, especially at his age. And then if you just want to look at the storyline, Oldberg, Oldberg is not undefeated, but he's like a highly touted prospect. They don't really have anyone at the top of 205 who's new. They want new guys. I think Oldberg will just win like a close decision. He hasn't done a ton of offensive grappling, so I don't think he's gonna Teixeira him. But he hasn't been successfully grappling against much at all. So I don't think Blachowicz is just gonna take him down and beat him up like he did to Pereira. It honestly just makes too much sense for the UFC to have Oldberg win, and I've picked against him too often, so I'm just going to pick Blachowicz. I'm just going to pick Oldberg to beat Blachowicz. So there's that. I can totally see Blachowicz just taking him down and beating him up, and I don't know why Blachowicz is such a big underdog, but I'll pick Oldberg. I must be missing something. I don't know. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling like crazy. Let me get started with. Main event. You can bet your bottom dollar this fight will be boring as fuck. Okay, we'll get into it. Leon Edwards, he's fought a similar style of fighter in his last 4 fights. These cardio-heavy pressure grapplers. In his first fight against Usman, Edwards gassed, and he started to lose the edge that he was getting early on in the fight. He had this edge in the clinch where he'd get outside trips, and he'd get good knees on the break, and he'd throw good body kicks on the break. And then kind of gassed out, lost the second round, started gassing in the third, and started losing the fight. And then, he won with a minute left of the head kick. Kind of fluky. Whatever. Second Usman fight, he didn't gas. It wasn't at altitude. It was in the O2, which is, by the way, where this fight is going to be occurring. Same arena. And he kind of took advantage of, the advantages that he has on the feet and in the clinch. And he used his good technique to not get bullied against the fence, not get taken down a ton, like he was in the first fight after he gassed. In the Covington fight, Covington he put too much respect on Edwards' striking, and he basically did nothing because he's afraid of getting caught, which is kind of what Edwards wants his opponents to do. Just, if you are as hesitant as I am, I'm probably going to outland you by a couple, by 20%. I'll outland you 12-10 every round and win the fight, which is what he did to Covington. Boring fight, but he clearly won. And I think he had a similar attitude in the Muhammad fight, but Bilal didn't hesitate, didn't put too much respect on Edwards' power, and he also put a lot of pressure and used a lot of variable distancing and interesting. I'll give him a lot of credit, but he did a lot of dumb shit on the feet that found openings, blitzes and switching stances, and just he did this one thing that I don't know if anyone will ever do again, but Edwards did this high cross guard. Think of George Foreman, who just died an hour ago, rest in peace, where he puts both of his arms up and he blocks straight punches with his elbow and hooks with his hand. And he's doing this cross guard, and Bilal just stands right in front of him and feints the most blatant feints ever, gets him to put that guard up, and then just spams lead uppercuts to punch him through that guard. Doing stuff like that, it's just he trains well. That's a good game plan. And tactically, Bilal just kind of beat him there by doing interesting stuff like that in the feet. And even in the Bilal fight, even though he was looking good in the feet, had a couple good moments. If you look at where Bilal won, had the round winning moments, it was when he was able to get dominant positions because of a couple of those moments in the opening of the feet. So when he dunked him on the head, he broke from the clinch, did a couple fancy things on the feet. Not fancy, but flashy shit, whatever. He fucked with Edwards' flow on the feet, and then shot a really good high crouch takedown. I was able to dump him on his head. That's how he was getting those good positions. It wasn't from like Usman just outgrinding him. It was from doing interesting stuff to get good openings. And if you look at all of that stuff he did, all of the unique approaches and the dominant rounds, dominant positions he was able to get in, he just barely eked out a decision. Like if Edwards just postured up with a minute left in the 5th round and just threw elbows and like rocked Bilal on the feet, he would have won the fight 3-2. And I think Bilal is much better at being the grindy grappler than Sean Brady is, who I haven't talked about a ton, but I just don't think he's that good. I don't think Brady has like a huge cardio advantage over Edwards. I don't think he has a huge technique advantage against Edwards, and I really don't think that he has like the ability to do what Bilal did, where he just has like a bunch of different openings on the feet. I don't think he has like the experience to like switch it up and change his tactics during the fight to win. So yeah, I'm gonna pick Edwards to win because of that. I just think good chance Brady just stays on the outside and hesitates, or he doesn't get the opportunities that he wants in the clinch when he gets them. And I think similar to the second Usman fight, I mean, are we seriously trying to imply, having Brady as a favorite, that he's better than Usman? Because Edwards won the second Usman fight in similar circumstances. Doesn't make sense. Brady's not going to be able to do what what Usman was able to do in the first fight and what Bilal was able to do. He's just not that skilled. And he's not that tactical. I just haven't seen anything like really good out of him. If you look at Edwards, he's arguably fought the best of the best in welterweight history when it comes to tit-for-tat kickboxing matches and wrestling grindfest. He's only lost one of those fights, and it was close. So, like Covington was able to beat him. Usman wasn't able to beat him in their second and third fight, and Bilal had won by a close decision. So Brady's not going to be able to give Edwards like a unique look at that style. He's not going to do anything that Edwards hasn't seen in those previous guys, and I really don't think he's going to like give him a new look on the feet like a JDM might or a Shavkat might, where it's like, oh, he's got to worry about just getting cracked and colded. I know Edwards got rocked by Nate Diaz, who I did see on like this is a complete aside, and I've been yapping a lot, but I just had to get this out. I saw like a Build Your Perfect Fighter, like one of those graphics on like ESPN MMA, and under power it had Nate Diaz, which that's wild. Nate Diaz doesn't finish anyone, but I know Edwards got rocked by Nate Diaz, but that was one moment in a 5-round fight that was mostly striking. Looked really good against Cerrone. It was a close fight, but he like didn't get rocked by him. And Brady's not going to do any of the unique shit Cerrone was doing, any of the unique shit Bilal was doing to like open up those opportunities. So I don't see where Brady's going to get an advantage, especially when you realize that like the game plan he's going to come with is very similar to Usman, Bilal, and Covington, who are all arguably significantly more proven than Brady at that style of play. So, because he's not going to be able to do that and find, give Edwards a unique look that he hasn't seen yet, I don't see how he's going to win. And I don't understand. Is he still a favorite? Because if he is, that is crazy. Let me check. He's a -1. I mean, I'm telling you, plus 130 Edwards and plus 105 Tybura is literally free money. Like, it's Vegas just handing out money. So let me know if you agree or disagree. Thanks for listening. Like the video, subscribe, comment if you agree or disagree. I think I already said that. It is 1:40 a.m. Probably should have recorded this video earlier. Watching basketball all day. I said a lot of things. Check out my Twitter in the description. That is all. Thanks for listening. Check again next week for my predictions next week. Oh yeah, there's a fucking one event. I'm not gonna talk about it. Maybe I'll tweet about it. So, yeah.